Hi, I'm here with Vern Swaback at his office in Scottsdale, Arizona. Vern, what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
Interesting question. I experienced it long before I knew the word architecture. Mm-hmm. I'm a trumpet player, and my trumpet lessons were taken in Oak Park, Illinois. And going to the instructor and home, I would see these houses in one building that just, I had to know more about it. You know, I didn't know the word architecture, I didn't know the name Frank Lloyd Wright. Mm-hmm. But that was when the seeds were planted, that there was something very different about houses which were basically the same height and width and whatever. Mm-hmm. There was something that just caught my attention.
Uh-huh. And when did you find out who designed those houses?
We had an amazing high school teacher. Mm-hmm. His name was Eugene Jarvis. And he went to the University of Illinois and got all of their first year assignments for architects.
Yeah.
He taught them in high school, you know, like the Suzuki violin, you don't have to be a certain age, right? Mm-hmm. And we would pretty typically win a good deal of the national competitions, and it was mainly because we just got there first. Uh-huh. But he also had a big sign in the front behind his desk. It said, "A doctor can bury his mistakes, but an architect can only advise his client to grow vines." Signed Frank Lloyd Wright. That was the first time I saw the name Frank Lloyd Wright. And so I was at the University of Illinois when Mayor Daley proclaimed that it would be Frank Lloyd Wright Day in a couple of weeks or so. Mm-hmm. And so I attended that, and it was the first time that I ever saw Frank Lloyd Wright, mm-hmm. Or Mayor Daley. And I have a photograph of myself where he's unveiling his design for the Mile High building.
Okay.
Standing in front of it. Mayor Daley's here, and there's some eager kid up above looking like this, and it's me. And somebody sent me this photograph. I mean, I don't even know who took it. Mm-hmm. But that was the beginning, and I also learned from some of his apprentices at the time who were there how to make contact with him to become an apprentice. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a letter, and I was still at the University of Illinois, and I mailed it, and about 2 hours later I thought, that letter's going to be lost, and so I called. God, his secretary, his name was Gene Masselink, a wonderful person, and a date was set. Uh-huh. I was a very young 16, mm-hmm. a kid, and so my parents drove me to Spring Green. They were very strict fundamentalist Christians, and mm-hmm. they had heard a few things about Frank Lloyd Wright that worried them. And so I was sitting between my mother and my father in his study at Taliesin. Uh-huh. He was across the room, and he said, "Why do you want to leave the university?" And I reflected on my answer a lot, because I definitely didn't know where it came from at the time, and I still don't know where it came from. But mm-hmm. I said, because they're beginning to teach preconceived ideas. And he just probably jumped out of his chair, and he said, "Where does he get it from you? Or are you looking at my mother and father?" Uh-huh. And I knew, I'm sure they were scared, but I knew that my life had just been changed forever. Uh-huh. And so I finished up the first year. My university professor begged me not to go, and then he said, "But if you go, promise me you leave after 1 year, because people get stuck there." He had some other students apparently who went there. Uh-huh. So I did. I said I agreed to leave after 1 year. And just put this in terms of history, I boarded a train across the country, got off at a station in Phoenix, which is no longer there, and went through what was kind of downtown, but it wasn't there, but it is now, mm-hmm. and then drove across a mainly empty desert to this place that looked like Brigadoon. There were these buildings, but the roofs they looked like huge balloons of light, mm-hmm. because of the translucent canvas. All overwhelming. So mm-hmm. was given a little place to sleep. It was kind of indoor-outdoor.
Uh-huh.
And the next morning, they brought a little hot-up mortar and some tools, and they said, we'll walk you out to the desert, and there's a half-completed tent, and when you finish it, this will be your new home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of change, right? From Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. And what year was that?
January of 1957.
Okay.
Now, I have, for a variety of reasons, worthy reasons, I think, I believe I may be the last living person who knows more about Frank Lloyd Wright than anybody else.
I think you probably are.
But then I awakened to why that was. It's because when he was 70, I hadn't yet been born.
Yeah.
I went to see a play on his life once, and I thought, I'll be the judge and jury. I'm going to critique it. So, and it started off with his youth, and I didn't recognize anything because I didn't know him until he was the world's greatest architect. So.
Yeah. That's really incredible.
Let me just give you a story that you haven't asked yet, but just to give a sense of the man.
Okay.
Mrs. Wright was very involved in running the whole Taliesin Fellowship. Probably wouldn't have happened without her. But she was very different than he was.
Mm-hmm.
And we had our parties at Taliesin. I think we put more time and energy into our parties than in the architectural work.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody just knew what to do. They knew where the tools were, where the pillows were, where the blankets were. And so this was called a Heaven and Hell Party. And it was held down on the upper dam and lake at Taliesin in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And before I got there, the fellowship had taken a big fishing skull and turned it into like an Arabian Nights kind of vessel.
Uh-huh.
And so the chorus was on it, floating up to this heaven and hell scene. Heaven was this gigantic spider web in which the spider itself was about 4 feet in diameter and breathing fire and everything. Heaven was hell. Heaven was a spire made out of a neighbor's windmill tower with all kinds of lattice and so forth. And being a trumpet player, Mrs. Wright said I would be the Archangel Gabriel. And so I would stand there in a white robe, and they would float in singing Let the Heavenly Light Shine on Me, and I would play a fanfare, and they would come on board.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the way I was raised, from West Christianity, I went to Frank Lloyd Wright, and I said, I can't do this. It seems to me to be blasphemous.
Mm-hmm.
This was in his sort of combination bedroom studio at the main Taliesin building.
Uh-huh.
He listened to me as long as he could, and he said, and you think of him as being arrogant, right? The world does.
I don't know. I mean, I know a bunch of architects, right? So it's like I think maybe arrogant is probably equal to architect.
When you think of a judge in a court saying, "Is it true you call yourself the world's greatest architect?" and somebody later said, "I had to. I was under oath." Anyway, so he says, we should improve on our parents. And he said, here's the world's greatest architect, right? Bombastic, telling everybody what to do. He said, I don't think I'm any better than my mother or father, but I had more opportunity. I thought that was just an amazing thing to hear. Mm-hmm. I still didn't let up, so he said, this is Mrs. Wright's department. He walked me into her room. And
but the parties sound very conceptual.
Pardon me?
The parties sound very conceptual as far as ideas and
story
building and creating space out of yeah.
I mean, it was the only time when we were all doing things together. Well, we did a lot of things together. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so she named me Gabriel, and she called me Gabriel forever. And she and I were always a little bit at odds. Mm-hmm. And for 3 years in a row, we spent the summers in Switzerland rather than Spring Green.
Okay.
And Mrs. Wright came to me one day and she presented me with this beautiful emerald green tie. And she said, Gabriel, this is for you. You don't deserve it, but it's your color. That was my relationship with Mrs. Wright. Now remind me where we are. In this
what are 3 classic buildings that you like and why? And you said that you wanted to not answer.
Well,
the
first
question.
of all,
okay.
Let me just say something that was embedded in me very early on. Frank Wright says, "What is architecture?" Mm-hmm. He said, "Is it the world's greatest buildings?" And he said, "I think not. It's the spirit which made them great." So I can have favorites, but I don't really have favorites. I mean, I'm in awe of the Johnson Wax headquarters.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't help but that. The other would be any one of the Usonian houses, which are so tiny that you wonder how many opportunities were there in this little tiny space to make it, like one of them was just put in the World Treasure Site. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And when you meet the families who've lived there like second, third generation, and they won't move, they don't even like their neighborhood anymore, they want to be somebody, but they won't move. Mm-hmm. How do you put into that space? This is where I think miraculous comes in, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't trace it to any one thing, even if you see things that you love. Mm-hmm. It doesn't add up to being such greatness.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I mean, we don't really have, we don't have that today. I mean, I don't know why we didn't build on those principles.
You know, what's interesting is I don't think anyone questions a fine painting. I don't think anyone questions why is this painting called great? You
mm-hmm.
know? We question that with a house because it has such utility.
Yeah.
You know, we don't expect a painting to have utility. Mm-hmm. And so what he did was to bring into a very functional place that had to do all kinds of things, keep the rain out and let the light in and keep you warm and cordon off bedrooms and so. Mm-hmm. And he turned that into a work of art.
Yeah.
You know, he came into the drafting room laughing one day. He said he just interviewed this young man who wanted to be an apprentice, and he rejected him. He was laughing. He said he told me he wanted to learn how to design big houses. And he said, I don't know anything about designing big houses except to do a little good one and make it bigger. I'll tell you one other thing about design. Mm. We had kind of a historic, habitual thing of every Christmas and Frank Wright's birthday, we had what's called the Box Project. Mm-hmm. And it started way back when there was absolutely no money. And so to celebrate something, somebody made a beautiful box and everybody else did something of their imagination. Yeah. And create it and give it to Mr. Wright. Yeah. Comment on it. And
they did that for his last birthday. Right, at Taliesin sent them out. We got the letter. Yeah, we got the letter for it. Yeah.
And so, my first box project, I don't have a whole lot of memory about what he said and whatever. Mm-hmm. But so I thought, okay, this next one, I'm gonna give it all I've got. Mm-hmm. So it had a big stone prow, and the sight went down, so this triangle became more pronounced, and had patterned fascias, and it has ribbed. Standing seam foots and minor hood. Mm-hmm. He took a look at it and said, well, this all looks familiar enough to me. Next time, let's see what you can do.
And see, that's great because he was motivating people to create in their own work instead of trying to emulate him.
Keeping
right?
with humor.
Yeah.
I'm a trumpet player, okay? Mm-hmm. And he loved the fact that I played the trumpet in the chamber ensemble and so forth. And so one day we're in the garden room at Taliesin, Wisconsin, and we're standing around his harpsichord, which had broken. Uh-huh. About 8 of us or something. Everybody tried to look good around him. Mm-hmm. And we're all trying to figure out how to fix it. Uh-huh. So finally he said, let Vern fix it. Vern plays the trumpet. One other thing to tell you. We had
did you fix it or not?
No. We had this celebrated pianist, Gunnar or somebody or other, and it was in the Taliesin living room. Mm-hmm. The whole fellowship was there, Mr. and Mrs. Wright. So this guy started playing, and he played forever, but it got to be where it was just pounding, just pounding. And we're all kind of wondering, what's the Wright going to say? Because this is really weird. And so he finishes it. Wright said, well, I guess if the piano can take it, we can. Let me give you another story.
Okay.
Do you know who Mike Todd was? Todd A.O. Movies?
Yes.
The creator of the widescreen?
Yes.
Do you know who Mrs. Todd was?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Okay.
So, I say that I'm the most fascinating person Elizabeth Taylor's ever met.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a boast, It happened one night when these two limousines pull up, and out comes and says, hi, I'm Mike Todd. I said, hi, I'm Vern Swaback. And he said, and this is my wife. And she said her name was Elizabeth. I said, I'm Vern, and so forth. Now, and then she had what she called the monsters. And it was Michael Wilding, which was a former husband of hers, with two kids. She kept calling him the monster. And so Mike Todd looks up at the sunset, the kind we have here.
Mm-hmm.
He starts talking in a way I didn't understand. He said, you put too much in it, don't you think? It's a little lewd. I mean, you got too much color in it. He's talking about it's like making a movie. So then we're in, and I knew she was beautiful, and I helped her with a coat and everything, did everything I could to hug her.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're standing with Frank Lloyd Wright in the Taliesin and West drafting room, and Mr. Wright is showing the work he'd done in Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
And King Faisal was the client, and so he showed where the university was going, and King Faisal said, Mr. Wright, where do you want to put the opera house? And so there was this island in the middle of the Tigris and Euphrates River.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'd like to put it there, and the king put his hand on it and said, Mr. Wright, it's yours. At which point, Mike Todd turned to Elizabeth Taylor and said, you remember that little shrimp? We had dinner with him when we were there. Talk about two very different people, right? And probably something that isn't known. The reason he was there is he was going to do a whole series of Mike Todd theaters across the country. And Bucky Fuller and Frank Lloyd Wright were joined together.
Okay.
And so if you ever saw an early sketch, it was kind of like the bottom was a big, massive kind of stone, and then the top was this geodesic stone putting right there. And it's probably very good that it never happened. One of the times that I picked up, many times, Bucky Fuller at the airport, took him up to Taliesin in Wisconsin, and here, he said to me, I don't understand what Frank sees in me. We're both so different.
But yeah, I mean, right? Great minds can both be different. Yeah.
He would sing songs like "Roam home to a dome where the stresses and strains are at ease."
Bucky Fuller did.
He was.
Oh my gosh.
He said the day might come. Back up a little bit. I was raised in Chicago, okay? Mm-hmm. So we'd have these guests from all over the world, or all over this country. I'd tell them I was from Chicago, and they say, oh, I am too. And I'd say, no, you're not. You're from some snooty suburb. And they always were. Glen Ellen, Lake Forest, Oak Park, whatever. So Bucky Fuller said the day may come when people ask where you're from, your first part will be to say planet Earth, because we'd by that point be so... The guy was
supposedly, yeah. It hasn't turned out that way, but
absolutely liberating.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah.
And very few people know, although it's in one of his books, that early in his life he represented a building company that it was his family, relatives. Mm-hmm. He was in charge of it, and it got to be where it was a failure, and mm-hmm. he was made to feel like a failure. And he was down in Lake Michigan considering committing suicide.
Wow.
And this voice came to him and said, you know, you don't own yourself. You're a voice. You have to, whatever, however you explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And that kicked off this whole amazing site level.
Wow.
He came up with these incredible things which he made easy to understand. He said unity is a minimum 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Male and female is easy. Then he'd say a rope, compression and tension. You pull on it, it's in tension, the girth goes in.
Yeah.
Light and day, hot and cold, you know.
Mm-hmm.
His speeches were, there's one book of his, in forward it says, this book is the transcription of a speech he gave on such and such a date. I mean, never that long. He was being given some kind of award in New York City. And these are people, it was a lunchtime award, these are people who expect somebody to say 2 or 3 words and they would clap and they could all leave, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This was going on and on and on. And so finally some of them got together and they put this plan in place that as soon as he made a pause, they'd all just applaud like crazy. And after they applaud, they get up and walk off.
Did it work?
Yeah.
It did? Oh, okay.
Now, there's another time when he was asked, he was with a group of Russians, and they were asked, they had a leading Russian scholar, and they had Bucky from here,
Mm-hmm.
and they were asked to sort of debate each other. And so, at the end, they agreed that he won, you know, and the other debater came over and said to the U.S. guy, said, he won hands down. He said, tell me, what did he say? Let's go back to your list.
Okay, what do you like about being an architect?
To say that, to answer that, I have to first define architect,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because just to say that you're part of a profession, especially with the Frank Lloyd Wright background, doesn't quite have an easy fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright called architecture and architects the seeing eye for society. He saw that as being the architect's role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when Frank Lloyd Wright is called the world's greatest architect, I'm writing a new book about him. And,
Okay.
And I'm saying that title doesn't do it because it assumes that you know what an architect is and you can grade papers, you know. And what makes Frank Lloyd Wright so revered,
Mm-hmm.
so uncommonly revered, and I'll get into that in just a minute, is that he was different.
Yeah.
He breathed sort of spirit
Mm-hmm.
into dwellings. I mean, I saw him hold up a brick saying, oh, a brick is just a brick, but oh, what you can do with it, you know. He didn't like when people called cement mud or mortar mud.
Yeah.
Because for him it was all sort of ecclesiastical material.
Yeah.
And
more like a visionary rather than
so
just an architect.
The
right?
whole spirit of my book, I wrote in 1997, I wrote a book called Designing the Future.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Designing the Future, 2nd edition.
Okay.
And it's all focused on, I'm jumping around, but it's focused on
That's
the
okay.
premise that if you are a close observer of the evening news, we're lost. We don't have a clue, you know. If you look at, for example, the introduction, Frank Lloyd Wright said, Hull House lectures way back when, 18-something or other, that technology should be put to work, but never in such a work that takes command over the source that created it, okay?
Yeah.
So we now have a technology which is way out ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have families in Silicon Valley who are finding places to send their children where there isn't a digital piece of equipment anywhere in the site.
Yeah.
And so we now have the ability for individuals and groups to create as much destruction as it used to take a nation to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I'm not predicting the outcome of that. Take artificial intelligence. In the book, I write from two sides. I mean, there are people who are really praising it because what they're saying is that the doctor may take the most obvious, and even beyond the obvious, information in which to make a decision.
Mm.
But artificial intelligence looks at all kinds of unrelated stuff and comes up with something a little bit more accurate, you know. On the other hand, there was a convention in Switzerland recently, which was reported on the New York Times, and people were just drooling over, with artificial intelligence, I could get rid of 40% of my workforce, and then one person in Milwaukee said he could limit all his workers, you know. So if that becomes something, then we have to invent a whole new kind of Social Security, in which how do you pay people? So in other words, we'll get to where we'll make humans kind of irrelevant as a participating contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a whole new different, all kinds of people are writing about we'll be able to live forever, we just won't be biological. And there's a woman that's, you know, and they're saying, well, take a heart transplant or all kinds of things, or artificial bones.
Yeah.
And there's a woman who I communicated with a lot, and quote, I'm not sure how much I can keep quoting her because she puts private pictures, but she's at MIT,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that she has people in her classes who want to upload themselves into their computers. She doesn't know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. But I mean, what
I don't
happens
know
is
either.
that
What
the technology becomes primary, and humanness becomes like something that's outdated.
I mean, that's something that I really, that I struggle with.
Frank Lloyd Wright, way back when.
Yeah.
So 1957, 58. He said the humans are going to grow to where they might have one huge finger to just push buttons, and everything else will have atrophied.
That's what's going to happen. I mean, that's what's going to happen, right? If we don't use our brain,
so
right?
Here's where I want to come back to your question about favorite building.
Okay.
If I had to pick one sort of focus group to save us, it wouldn't be religion.
Mm-hmm.
If one strong religion meets another, there are only three possibilities: convert, accommodate, or kill.
Yeah.
And accommodation is not allowed by fundamentalist religions. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to, say, economics, way back when, I don't know, founding fathers or maybe later, but it was discussed a lot when I first got to Taliesin. There was an argument against having gold be the gold standard. They wanted it to be wheat, which if you didn't use it, it would rot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can make gigantic fortunes out of just this abstraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
That has no outside dividends. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are all, they're concepts.
Where I would praise architecture to the hilt is in its intestines, it has a sense of wholeness about coordinating and connecting all kinds of things.
Yes.
Into a reality, into a new reality, into doing more with less, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
No, definitely. And I think that people don't realize that about architecture.
Well,
and
I also
architects.
think architects don't realize it.
Because
just for financial success, it's happened to this firm, okay? You have to compete with others on terms that we may not even put high on our list.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it has everything going for it. It doesn't have the judgmentalist of religion. It doesn't have the inherited power that comes from money or whatever. I mean, it's a cold, fresh, out of the blue relationship between a piece of land, a client, an architect. What can we do with this? You know?
Yeah, instead of building on kind of these novel ideas about things. Yeah,
but
I think.
But the more successful the architect becomes, the more trapped the architect becomes, because you can't think out of the box. You can think bigger, better, more extraordinary, even perhaps more economically sound.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably can't alter the human reality of, that's what my new book's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, the focus is totally on community. You know, we divide everything into pieces, like the ability to share cars. That's a good idea, okay?
Yeah.
All these kinds of things that make us do more with less, or make it possible to do more. Those are all good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But until you get it to where that's the very fundamental encouragement of the environment that allows you, at Taliesin, trumpet player, right? For rehearsals, the chamber ensemble, I could leave my drafting board, or I could leave the cement mixer, and 2 minutes later, I'm sitting with my trumpet playing with others, okay?
Yeah.
I was for a time in the Phoenix Symphony. The difference is that it took me 3, 4, 5 times more traveling to go back and forth than rehearsing or performing.
Yeah.
And then looking around at my peers, I would see people walking onto the stage as though they hated being there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to be here. Now, I had another mentor, the greatest trumpet player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Adolf Herseth. He was called Bud.
Okay.
He also was located in Oak Park. He was the principal trumpet player of the Chicago Symphony.
Okay.
And one New York reviewer said he is not only the finest trumpet player of any trumpet player in any orchestra, he's the finest musician of any musician in any orchestra. His stories were all more like Frank Lloyd Wright's. You know, I would say I have trouble sometimes of an exposed passage that'll miss a note. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so somebody else might give a lot of tonguing exercises. He said, "Well, what are you thinking of when you go to hit that note?" He said, "If you're thinking about where your lips are, where your tongue is, you'll miss it every time." He said, "If you're thinking about what you want it to mean in the presentation, your automated mechanism will take over and you won't be able to miss." And he had this, he never missed anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in Thus Spake Zarathustra where the trumpet player goes from middle C to high C, bump, 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 bah! And you can hear people sort of, you know, bracing themselves, putting their foot against the chair. He just goes, like, that's supposed to be that way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, and I think that's if any type of like organized, kind of organized lessons, just as far as different education systems. I mean, I know that like when I played the flute, but I only really played it from like 4th to 8th grade. And then it got like too competitive to me, right? It wasn't just about me like playing the flute and enjoying it. It was about me having to, you know, okay, are you going to be first chair? Are you going to be second chair? You know, it's like, it was like this competition, and it wasn't fun for me anymore, you know? And really after that, I mean, you know, I didn't play it in high school, you know, it's like, I encouraged my kids to play, you know, when they were younger also, but I mean, they didn't go into like the upper echelon.
Did I tell you about my daughter who played piano?
No.
She was a little girl. She would give recitals, and she was really good and loved it. So now she's older.
Uh-huh.
She said, "Dad, I want you to buy me a piano." I
Like
said,
now, or when
yeah,
she was younger?
No.
Now, okay.
I said, "Caroline, you took lessons, you gave recitals, you were great, and you just gave it all up. Now, why not?" She said, No, Dad, you don't understand. This piano plays itself. Talk about a knife through the heart.
No, we still have a flute in the house, but I don't get it out. I don't. I mean, I probably should, but
I have a picture of
don't.
myself somewhere around here where I was given some kind of honor or whatever, and they want a picture. So in my house, I have a picture I have a wonderful golden lab.
Uh-huh.
So he's looking up at me, and I'm playing my trumpet. He's staring at me like he's admiring my playing.
So you became a fellow, right? What did you? Why did you apply for fellowship?
Well, at Taliesin, nobody.
As far as like an AIA, right?
Nobody joined anything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I became the first person to join the AIA.
Okay.
And then, kind of just as a very practical level, I decided if there's something that is kind of out there to reach for, I should do that. And so I did it for FAICP and also for the planning world.
Okay.
The funny one is that I was recently given kind of a top award from the American Society of Landscape Architects, but I'm not a landscape architect.
But you did write all of the books about keeping the natural landscape, yes. So I suppose that's why.
And then I most recently made an Arizona History Maker, and this is a big gala and so forth at the Biltmore, and all the speakers. But when I got up to speak, there was something digital going on. Everybody's cell phones started going off and so forth like this. And so I said, "Mr. Wright, is that you?"
Was it the National Alert or something?
No.
What would you like to say about the future of architecture?
I think if you look at architectural history or magazines, and you can look at what you might call progress, I think we're reaching a place where making buildings tall, making buildings energy efficient, making them sculptural, all the good things that we associate with architecture. I think we're reaching a point where almost by inference or even necessity that might want to make a little bit of a turn, okay? And so for me, and that's kind of a push side, but the pull side is that I have a little diagram asking, where do you place your faith? Religion, economics, politics, technology, and so forth. I don't see a whole lot of people placing their faith in any one of those,
Yeah.
And so where I would like to place a faith is that architecture is fundamentally the art of human relationships to each other, all of us together with nature. It's got the broadest band of it has the broadest band of caring,
Yeah.
And what I see that would propel it to that is that we'll get to where our focus now might have 7 architects in competition for the same thing, and they might all look alike. Because there's, if you were just trying to be a businessman architect, you certainly wouldn't want to waste any time drawing. I mean, you want to, one of our clients was it was a family-owned company, structural contractor, big, high-rise building. And we had designed his house in St. Louis. And so I spent some time in his office, his headquarters in St. Louis. And they had a bell which they would ring every time they had a job come in that was over $50 million. And this bell was ringing constantly. And so I asked him, I said, "What is the secret to your success?" And he said, "I can walk into a room of potential people to hire us, and I can be anything anybody wants me to be, like a chameleon or something.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly that would be a feather in your cap if your job was to get work, but
you still have to live with yourself, right?
I don't see the safety of the world coming from that which is spoken from the pulpits of the various religions. I see medicine as being something that can keep developing and going on and doing good things. Law is kind of like it thrives on conflict and overshooting everything and so forth.
Yes.
So when you come down to where do you put your faith, if it weren't for architecture, I wouldn't have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
But because of architecture, by its very nature, I plug it there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it deals with the land, it deals with climate, it deals with the aspirations of people, it deals with the relationships of people, it deals with everything from transportation and how do you make things work, how do you make things, how do you do more with less?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
We've done sort of physically doing more with less. I mean, some great architects, that was their sort of their mantra. But I think a better way, the statistics say, and I don't know where these statistics come from, that a car spends 94 to 96% of its time parked. Okay, so you think about the energy that goes into creating the cars, the parking lots, the ever-widening freeways.
Yeah.
There's no future for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And then that we're designing architecture around cars.
Right.
Yeah. And parking lots.
If you
and
look
the parking.
At politics, I don't think anyone could win an elected office, if they sort of told it the way it is,
Mm-hmm.
Because you basically have to talk down to the lowest common denominator, or you have to talk to very high level people in their specialty.
Yeah.
But you can't speak holistically, or you'd sound like a minister,
Yeah. I mean, why do you think that there isn't faith in that faith has kind of like fallen out of people's minds today? I mean, I heard this woman saying, "Oh, well, people that are religious will say," and not from the church that I go to, but people the younger people are having a problem connecting because these past things and these past kind of elements of faith are so different from today's world. And I was thinking, really, are they? I mean, I don't think that's. I think those fundamental elements of faith and things that you believe in, or I think that those are inherent, whether it was million years ago or today.
Part of today's
right?
world is, are the hemlines up or down, or the tides widening or narrowing? When they talk about today's world, it's these metrics that don't mean anything.
Yes, exactly. That those, I mean, and I think that's, and I was like, I wanted to say like, no, that's we're not talking about faith as far as that's concerned about today's world. We're talking about the bigger picture.
Poet Emerson said that the preacher announces on Wednesday that he's going to tell it straight. He's going to lay it out, the reality of everything. He said, everybody knows that's not true. He said if they did, they would bring the halt and the lame on litter bearers. I'll give you another preacher story. Mm-hmm. This was a farmer, and he had strawberry patches and so forth. And he was going to church, and there was this tremendous storm, and he just said, "I'm going to fight my way through it." And so he gets there, and he's the only person to arrive for the church service. And the minister said, "I think we'll just call it off. There's only one person." He said, No, wait a minute. I got here. Mm-hmm. I made it here. You owe it to me to preach, right?
Uh-huh.
So he does the sermon, and he says to him, "How did I do?" He said, "Well, it's like this. If I were on my way with a load of manure to my strawberry patch, and a storm came through and tore it all out except for one, I wouldn't dump the whole load on that one strawberry."
Do you want to say anything else about architecture, or what your plans are, or you have the book coming up, right? The second book, or
it's an unanswerable question in this sense, that if you want to be effective as an architect, you can't be a philosopher that goes outside of the needs, budgets, restrictions of the work. Now, here's where Frank Lloyd Wright was different, okay? He never, ever, ever once went out in search of a job. Never once, okay? And how do you get selected for the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, for the Opera House and University in Baghdad, for the Massier Memorial in Venice, and then closer to home, the museum in New York and so forth. He tells a story in one of his books that in Oak Park, one of his neighbors went over and knocked on his door and said, "I've had every architect in town come begging on my door to want to remodel my place. How is it that you haven't knocked on my door?" He said, "I just don't do that, And then Taliesin and Taliesin West, we didn't have phones. Taliesin West, we had a radio phone. You could speak to a radio operator, she could relate her story to us, and we could relate. In Wisconsin, we had crank phones, party lines. So you'd call somebody new, the operator would say, "I think I can answer that question for you. Can I, I was in it was called a little kitchen. It was the kitchen where you serve Mr. and Mrs. Wright. And this phone rings, and I say, "Little kitchen." It was somebody calling from Beirut. Imagine you make this phone call to a little kitchen. So as a practical matter, it would seem to me that architects might think in terms of never retiring, but reaching a point where their client becomes humanity. And so all of the good things that are in the architect's soul now get lavished on something that doesn't exist as much in the material world. So maybe the architect becomes kind of an earth-grounded missionary. Not talking about the hereafter, but the here. And it would seem to me, I feel that way about my own firm. It was a one-person firm, and my thought was that as soon as somebody here could do something equal to or better than I could, I wanted them to do it. I've been a rampant success. Everybody here can do something better than I can do. I hadn't sort of thought about that. But, really that's a queasy feeling, but also if I just go back to the start, then this is an incredible victory.
Oh, yeah.
There are big name architects who say when they close the door, they want to shut it down. They don't want the firm to exist anymore, and stuff like that. In Frank Lloyd Wright's case, there was no one there to keep it going.
But you guys all went off and did your own practices.
No, a lot of people
No?
just died on the vine.
Really?
Yeah. When I was...
Because when did you leave? You told me before the last time that we met.
I think it was 1997 maybe.
Okay.
But so I went to Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and
Uh-huh.
I went to one other Chicago firm. I don't remember their name, but they're both big. So I just laid it out. I said, I have no idea what I'm worth. How would I fit in? And their answer was basically, I think you should start your own firm because you don't fit in anywhere. I was like, you're like, thanks a lot. Thank you.
The older that I get, the more I think that's actually a compliment. That's a compliment to be told that you should start your own firm because there's nobody else there, or that you don't fit in. I think that's a compliment. Yeah.
And there's a certain magic in it too. When I first started, maybe I told you I was rented pool cabana, bedded one in, trapped room there,
Mm-hmm.
and people would say, I see your sign all over town. Okay. The reason I have to give that a lot of thought is I know there was one sign. Okay. And so I think there is something in the ether that you just. Frank Wright said, once you inject an idea in the bloodstream of a nation, wild horses couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's something in the marketing of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
A big change in this firm, and I can't fight it, I wanted to. I didn't want to, Frank Wright's apprentice. I didn't want to go in search of jobs, and I said. So I would use this example as: imagine you've got this big mound of hay, and there's something in it you want. I said, would you rather just crawl through it, or would you rather have a magnet that just goes up to you? And that worked for a long time, but then it gets to a time when the client is not really a savvy decision maker as much as it is a group.
Mm-hmm.
And no one in that group has the self-confidence to discern something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I might be oversimplifying it, but I think that's the case with larger,
No, I think that's true, and I think that's the difference when one of the other people I was in are just talking about designing for corporation versus designing for single family residents, right? Single family residents, you're designing for these people. For a corporation, and you're designing with a group of people about these other needs that they have that they're you're designing for.
We've designed for individuals, corporations, local governments, state governments, and even an arm of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell our people, I said, you're still the same person, but you're going to have to speak a different language in every one of these places, because unless you can speak something that they can understand and want to understand, I was like this caveman who says to his cave woman, the problem is when I talk to you, look, I got to use words that end in words that sound alike.
So you think that's the difference? What's kind of the difference between the Frank Lloyd Wright's time where people came to him all the time versus today's time where it's too much information?
I think it's partly that, but I don't think you can minimize the radiation of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you go way back into the so-called Princeton lectures when he's talking about history,
mm-hmm.
prehistory really. He sounds as though he's there. He doesn't sound as though like he's a scholar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to just have that, I don't have any idea where that came from, because he wasn't all that educated, and he
mm-hmm.
lived all of his life in hard-to-reach places and didn't finish university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Local issue of National Geographic called the Genius Issue. It's got people like Buddha and whatever, and Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, that tells you something, right? That he had transcended
mm-hmm.
whatever he was, in theory, being.
Yeah. that he was more, that he wasn't, just an architect, and it wasn't just about architecture. Yeah.
He was also as funny as the greatest comedians.
Mm-hmm.
He said he was working in Pittsburgh, and the city fathers got together. And
I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay, so they said, "Well, what should we do with it?" He said, "Abandon it."
Yeah.
So then he gets to San Francisco, and he said, "San Francisco is the most beautiful city I can imagine, despite of all the things you're doing to it." And then he gets to LA, and he says, "If you pick up the country on the East Coast and shake it, everything loose would fall the other side, and you create Los Angeles." And he always would say, what this city needs is 7 first-class funerals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now
okay.
I need a strong biography of you.
Right now?
No.
Okay.
Because I'd like to know whether or not you would be qualified, and I would be interested, and you would agree to being one of the people who writes something on the back of my new book.
Okay. I'll give you a biography of me.
Good.
Yeah, and I'll do it. I had a link to the blogs with the questions that your office manager. I guess I don't know what happened with those, but I have a link to all of it. I'll show you some of my writing, and I'll show you some of my writing and my biography.
Just self-promote yourself to the hilt.
Okay.
God needs you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vern.
Did I ever tell you about the janitor after he's in church and he's cleaning up, after the Sunday service?
Uh-huh.
He goes up to the pulpit and hears the whole sermon. And there's some little side notes,
Mm-hmm.
It says here, look down, look thoughtful. This one says, gesture toward heaven. This one says, shout like hell, this point weak.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Vern. Thanks.